The rain battered the windows of the small suburban house in Portland, Oregon, as if the sky itself was grieving. James Hartley, 47, stood in his living room, his hands trembling as he clutched a mug of cold coffee. He'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times, but nothing prepared him for the weight of his daughter's eyes on him now. "Dad, what's going on?" Lily, his eldest at 22, leaned forward on the couch, her brow furrowed. Her sharp brown eyes, so like her mother's, pinned him in place. Emma, 19, sat beside her, quieter, her blonde hair falling over her shoulders as she fidgeted with a bracelet. The air was thick, the kind of silence that screamed louder than words. James took a breath, his voice barely steady. "I've been lying to you both. To myself. For years." He set the mug down, afraid it would slip from his hands. "Your mom and I, we're getting divorced. And I need to tell you why." Lily's jaw tightened, but Emma's eyes widened, soft and searching. James felt his heart lurch. He'd taught high school history for 2 decades, stood in front of hundreds of kids. But this facing his own daughters was the hardest thing he'd ever done. "I'm gay," he said, the words tumbling out like stones. "I've known since I was younger than you, Lily, but I buried it. I thought I could make it work. For your mom. For you both. I was wrong." The silence that followed was a living thing, coiling around them. Lily stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood. "You're telling us now? After 25 years with Mom? What the hell? Dad?" Emma reached for her sister's arm, but Lily shook her off. "Lily, please," James said, his voice cracking. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I thought I was protecting you." "Protecting us?" Lily's voice rose, sharp and raw. "You let us grow up in a lie. Mom's been crying for weeks, and you're standing here like it's just about you." Emma's voice was small, almost lost. "Dad, how long have you known?" James sank into a chair, his knees weak. "Since I was 16. I grew up in a small town. You didn't come out in the 80s. Not where I was from. I thought marrying your mom would fix me." Lily paced, her hands clenched. "So what? You just decided now's the time to blow everything up. You're 47. Dad. Why now?" The question hit like a punch. Why now? Because the weight of the secret had become heavier than the life he'd built. Because he'd met someone, Mark, a quiet librarian with kind eyes who made him feel alive in a way he hadn't in years. Because he couldn't keep pretending. "I met someone," James admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "His name is Mark. He's important to me." Lily froze. Emma's bracelet slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor. The rain outside seemed to roar louder, filling the gaps where words failed. "You're seeing someone already." Lily's voice was venomous. "You didn't just leave Mom, you replaced her." "It's not like that," James said, desperate. "I didn't plan this. I tried to stay. Lily. I tried for so long." Emma stood, her eyes glistening. "I need some air," she mumbled, grabbing her jacket and heading for the door. Lily followed, throwing a glance back at James that cut deeper than any words could. The door slammed, and James was alone. He sank to the floor, the weight of his truth heavier than ever. He'd expected anger, maybe even tears, but not this, his daughters walking out. The family he'd fought to hold together fracturing in a single night. The next morning, James sat at his desk in Lincoln High School, staring at a stack of ungraded essays. Teaching had always been his refuge, a place where he could be steady, dependable. But today, the words on the page blurred. His phone buzzed a text from his ex-wife. "Claire. The girls are with me." They're upset. Give them time. Time. He'd given himself 30 years to hide. How much time would his daughters need to forgive him? The classroom door creaked open, and Sarah, a fellow teacher and his closest friend, poked her head in. You look like hell, James. He managed a weak smile. Feel like it too. Sarah slid into a chair, her eyes kind but direct. You told them. Last night. He rubbed his temples. Lily hates me. Emma, I don't know. She just looked so hurt. They're young, Sarah said. They'll come around. You did the right thing. Did I? James's voice was hollow. I broke their world. Sarah. For what? To be happy. That feels so damn selfish. Sarah leaned forward, her voice firm. You're their father, not a martyr. They deserve a dad who's honest, even if it's messy. James wanted to believe her, but the ache in his chest told a different story. He'd spent years teaching kids about courage, about standing up for what's right. Now, he wondered if courage was just another word for destruction. That evening, James drove to the library where Mark worked. The small, cozy building was a stark contrast to the storm in his life. Mark, 45, with dark curls and glasses that slipped down his nose, looked up from the circulation desk and smiled. It was a smile that had undone James months ago, when they'd met at a book club Sarah dragged him to. You okay? Mark asked, his voice soft but steady. James shook his head. Told the girls last night. It didn't go well. Mark's hand brushed his, a fleeting touch that grounded him. I'm sorry. Do you want to talk about it? James hesitated. He wanted to spill everything, the anger in Lily's eyes, the betrayal in Emma's silence. But he also wanted to protect this fragile new thing with Mark, this spark of joy he hadn't felt in decades. Not yet, James said. Just stay with me. Mark nodded, and they sat in the quiet of the library, surrounded by books that held stories far less complicated than their own. Over the next week, James tried to reach his daughters. He texted, called, left voicemails. Lily ignored him. Emma sent short replies, I'm fine, or need space. Claire, ever the mediator, kept him updated, but her own pain was clear in her clipped messages. James threw himself into work, but the classroom felt different now. His students, usually a source of energy, seemed distant, or maybe he was the distant one. One afternoon, a student, Mia, lingered after class. She was 16, quiet, with a rainbow pin on her backpack. Mr. Hartley, can I ask you something personal? She said, hesitating. James nodded, wary. Sure. Mia? Are you okay? You seem sad. The question caught him off guard. He forced a smile. Just some family stuff. I'll be fine. Mia fiddled with her pin. My brother came out last year. It was hard for my parents at first, but they're trying. It gets better. You know. James froze. Did she know? Had word spread? But Mia's eyes were kind, not accusing. Thanks, Mia. He managed. I appreciate that. As she left, James felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, his daughters could find a way to understand. By the end of the week, James was exhausted. He sat in his empty house, staring at a photo of Lily and Emma as kids, their gap-toothed smiles beaming at a county fair. He'd been their hero then. Now, he wasn't sure what he was. His phone buzzed a message from Emma. Can we talk? Just me and you. James's heart leapt. He typed back quickly. Anytime. Name the place. She replied, "The park by the house. Tomorrow, 3 p.m." James exhaled, a mix of relief and fear. Tomorrow, he'd face his youngest daughter. Tomorrow, he'd try to rebuild what he'd broken. The park was alive with autumn's last gasp, golden leaves crunching underfoot, kids laughing on swings, the air crisp with the promise of winter. James arrived early, his hands stuffed in his jacket pockets, his breath visible in the October chill. He spotted Emma on a bench by the duck pond, her blonde hair tucked into a beanie, her gaze fixed on the water. "Em," he called softly, approaching. She looked up, her eyes guarded but not hostile. It was a start. "Hey, Dad," she said, scooting over to make room. James sat, the bench cold against his legs. For a moment, they watched the ducks glide in silence, the ripples spreading outward like their unspoken thoughts. "Thanks for coming," James said finally. "I wasn't sure you would." Emma shrugged, her fingers twisting the hem of her scarf. "I almost didn't. But, I don't know. I needed to see you." James's chest tightened. "I'm so sorry, Em. For everything. I never wanted to hurt you." She nodded, but her eyes stayed on the pond. "I get why you didn't tell us sooner. I mean, I think I do. But it's a lot. Dad, Mom's a mess. And Lily's so angry she can't even talk about it." "I know," James said, his voice thick. "I messed up. I thought I could keep it together forever. For you. For your mom. But it was killing me." Emma turned to him, her blue eyes searching. "Are you happy now? With him?" The question was a knife. Sharp but not cruel. James thought of Mark, the way his laugh filled a room, the way his hand felt steady in his own. "I'm starting to be," he admitted. "But not if it means losing you and Lily." Emma's lips trembled, and she looked away. "I don't want to lose you either. But I don't know how to do this. You're my dad. But you're also different now." James reached for her hand, hesitant. To his relief, she didn't pull away. "I'm still me, Em. I just hid a part of myself for too long. I want you to know all of me, even the messy parts." She squeezed his hand, just slightly, and it felt like a lifeline. "I need time," she said. "But I'm trying. Okay?" "That's all I can ask," James said, his voice breaking. They sat there, hand in hand, as the ducks swam in lazy circles. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a crack in the wall between them, a crack where light could seep through. Back at school, James found himself distracted. His conversation with Emma had given him hope. But Lily's silence loomed large. He'd tried texting her again, but her responses were cold. One-word replies. He wondered if she'd ever look at him the same way again. Sarah caught him in the teacher's lounge, her eyes narrowing. "You're spiraling. James, talk to me." He sighed, stirring his coffee. "Emma met me yesterday. She's trying. But Lily, I don't know how to reach her." "Lily's always been the firecracker," Sarah said, smiling faintly. "She's protective of Claire. Give her space. But don't give up." James nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. Lily had always been his rock, fierce, opinionated, unafraid to call him out. Losing her felt like losing a piece of himself. That afternoon, he ran into Mia again. She was lingering by his classroom, her rainbow pin catching the light. "Mr. Hartley, I wrote something for the school paper," she said, handing him a draft. "It's about acceptance. I thought, maybe you'd want to read it." James took the paper, his throat tight. The essay was raw. Honest, a story about her brother's coming out and the family's journey to understand him. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it hit James hard. This is powerful. Mia, he said. Can I ask, how did your parents get past it? Mia shrugged. They talked to him. Really listened. It took time, but they saw he was still their son. Love won out. You know. James nodded, tucking the essay into his bag. Maybe love could win out for him too. But first, he had to face Lily. That evening, James drove to Claire's apartment, where Lily was staying. Claire answered the door, her face tired but not unkind. She's in her room, she said. Go easy, James. She's hurting. James nodded, his heart pounding as he knocked on Lily's door. It's me, he called. A long pause. Then, come in. Lily sat on her bed, her laptop open, her expression unreadable. What do you want, Dad? To talk, James said, sitting on the edge of a chair. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But I need you to hear me out. Lily crossed her arms. Why? So you can explain how you lied to us for years. How you broke Mom's heart. James flinched but pressed on. I lied because I was scared. Not just of what people would think, but of losing you. Your mom. The life we built. I thought I could bury it forever. Then why didn't you? Lily's voice cracked, betraying her hurt. Because I was dying inside, James said, his eyes burning. I met Mark, and for the first time, I felt like I could breathe. I'm not asking you to be okay with it right away. I just want a chance to show you I'm still your dad. Lily looked away, her jaw tight. I need time. Dad, I can't just accept this. I know, James said softly. I'll wait. As long as it takes. He left her room, the weight of her words heavy but not hopeless. It was a start, however small. Over the next few weeks, James navigated a fragile new normal. Emma began texting him more, sharing bits of her life, her college classes, her part-time job at a coffee shop. They met for coffee once, and she asked about Mark, her curiosity cautious but genuine. Lily remained distant, but she didn't shut him out completely. She replied to his texts, short but civil, and once, she even sent a photo of her dog, a small gesture that felt like a bridge. Mark became James's anchor. They spent evenings together, cooking dinner or watching old movies. Mark listened as James poured out his fears, never pushing, always steady. You're doing the hard part, Mark said one night, his hand warm in James's. You're showing up. That's what matters. James clung to that, hoping it was true. But the holidays were approaching, and with them, the first test of their fractured family Thanksgiving. Claire had invited him to join her and the girls, a gesture that stunned him. He accepted, nervous but hopeful, knowing it could be a turning point or a disaster. Thanksgiving arrived, crisp and golden, the air thick with the smell of roasted turkey and pumpkin pie. Claire's house was warm, filled with the familiar chaos of family. Emma hugged James when he arrived, her smile tentative but real. Lily nodded, her expression guarded but not hostile. They sat around the table, the tension palpable but softened by Claire's efforts to keep things light. She asked about James's classes, Emma's job, Lily's grad school applications. For a moment, it felt like old times. Then Lily spoke, her voice steady. Dad, I've been thinking. I'm not okay with everything. Not yet. But I don't want to lose you. James's heart stopped, then surged. I don't want to lose you either. Lil. Emma reached for her sister's hand, then James's. We're family, she said simply. We figure it out. Claire smiled, her eyes glistening. to figuring it out, she said, raising her glass. James raised his throat tight. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. For now, it was everything. Thanksgiving lingered in James's heart like a fragile promise. The clink of glasses, Lily's hesitant words, Emma's quiet strength. It wasn't reconciliation. Not fully, but it was a step. He carried that moment with him as winter settled over Portland. The city cloaked in gray drizzle and early dusk. Back at school, James found his rhythm again. His students noticed the change. His lectures were livelier, his smiles less forced. Mia's essay had been published in the school paper, and it sparked conversations in his classes about identity and acceptance. For the first time, James felt like he could be more than just Mr. Hartley, the history teacher. He could be himself. One afternoon, a student named Ethan, a shy 15-year-old with a stutter, approached him after class. "Mr. H. Hartley," he said, clutching a notebook. "Can I talk to you?" "Of course," James said, gesturing to a chair. Ethan sat, his hands fidgeting. "I read Mia's essay," Ethan began, his voice low. "My uncle, he's gay. My parents don't talk about him much. I don't know what to think." James's heart ached, seeing himself in Ethan's uncertainty. "It's okay to feel confused," he said gently. "Maybe start by talking to your uncle. Ask him about his life. It's the best way to understand." Ethan nodded, a small weight lifting from his shoulders. "Thanks, Mr. Hartley." As Ethan left, James felt a surge of purpose. Teaching had always been about more than dates and battles. It was about helping kids navigate their worlds. Maybe, in some small way, he could help Ethan navigate his. At home, James's relationship with Mark deepened. They spent weekends exploring Portland's bookstores and coffee shops, their conversations weaving between the mundane and the profound. Mark shared stories of his own coming out a messy, painful process in his 20s that cost him friends but gained him freedom. "It's never linear," Mark said one evening, stirring a pot of chili in James's kitchen. "But it's worth it." James nodded, thinking of his daughters. "I just want them to see I'm still their dad. That this doesn't change how much I love them." "They will," Mark said, his hand brushing James's. "They're already trying." Emma was. At least. She'd started inviting James to small things: a movie, a walk in the park. Each time, she asked more about Mark, her questions cautious but curious. "What's he like?" she asked one day, sipping hot chocolate at a cafe. James smiled, warmth spreading through him. "He's kind, patient, loves books more than people, but somehow puts up with me." Emma laughed, a sound James hadn't heard in months. "He sounds okay. Maybe I'll meet him sometime." The words were casual, but they lit a spark in James's chest. "I'd like that," he said softly. Lily was harder to reach. She'd agreed to meet for coffee once, but the conversation was stilted, her smiles rare. "I'm not ready to meet him," she said when James mentioned Mark. "I'm trying, Dad, but it's a lot." "I know," James said, swallowing his disappointment. "I'm here, Lil, whenever you're ready." Christmas loomed, another test for their fragile family. Claire suggested they spend it together, a gesture that both touched and terrified James. He wanted to believe they could rebuild, but the wounds were still fresh. The day arrived, crisp and bright, with snow dusting the ground. Claire's house smelled of cinnamon and pine, the tree twinkling in the corner. Emma greeted James with a hug, her warmth a balm. Lily offered a small smile, a step forward. They exchanged gifts, the mood lighter than Thanksgiving. Emma gave James a book on queer history, Her grin shy. Thought you might like it, she said. James's throat tightened as he flipped through the pages. This is perfect. Thank you. Lily's gift was a framed photo of the three of them from years ago, laughing at the beach. I found it in my stuff, she said, her voice quiet. Thought you should have it. James traced the frame, his eyes burning. I love it. Lil. Thank you. Dinner was warm, filled with stories and cautious laughter. Claire shared memories of the girls as kids, and James found himself relaxing, the weight of the past months easing. As they cleared the table, Lily lingered, her expression serious. Dad, I've been thinking, she said. I don't get everything you're going through, but I want to try. Can we start slow? James nodded, his heart full. As slow as you need. Lil. The new year brought a sense of possibility. James and Mark planned a small trip to the Oregon coast, a chance to escape and breathe. The night before they left, James sat with Emma at a diner, sharing fries and stories. Lily's coming around, Emma said, dipping a fry in ketchup. She's just stubborn. Like you. James laughed, the sound genuine. Guess I deserve that. Emma's eyes softened. You're doing okay, Dad. Really? The word stayed with James as he and Mark drove to the coast, the ocean stretching endless and wild before them. They walked along the shore, hands linked, the wind tugging at their jackets. For the first time in years, James felt free not just to love Mark, but to be himself. Back at school, James started a discussion group for students like Ethan and Mia, a safe space to talk about identity and acceptance. It was small, just a handful of kids, but it grew steadily, their stories echoing his own. He saw Lily's fire in some, Emma's quiet strength in others. He saw himself, too, in the kids who were scared to speak their truth. One evening, Mark joined him at the school for a meeting. The kids loved him, his easy humor and vast knowledge of books winning them over. As they left, Mark squeezed James's hand. You're building something good here, he said. James smiled, thinking of his daughters. I'm trying. Spring arrived, softening Portland's edges with cherry blossoms and longer days. Emma met Mark at a bookstore event, her curiosity outweighing her nerves. They bonded over a shared love of sci-fi, and James watched, his heart swelling as Emma laughed at Mark's terrible puns. Lily wasn't ready to meet Mark, but she called James one evening, her voice tentative. I'm proud of you, Dad, she said. For the group at school. Mia told me about it. James's eyes stung. Thanks, Lil. That means a lot. I'm still figuring things out, she added. But I love you. I love you too, James said, his voice thick. As he hung up, he felt a weight lift. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. His daughters were finding their way to him, and he was finding his way to himself. Spring in Portland bloomed with possibility, the city's parks bursting with color, the air sweet with renewal. James felt it in his Bonisa cautious hope that his life, like the season, was shifting toward light. His daughters were still navigating their feelings, but the distance between them was shrinking, one small moment at a time. Emma's meeting with Mark had been a turning point. She'd texted James afterward. Her message simple but profound. He's nice. Dad, I get why you like him. It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a bridge, and James clung to it. Lily, though, remained a puzzle. She was warmer in their talks, but the mention of Mark still tightened her jaw. Her loyalty to Claire a wall James couldn't yet scale. At school, the discussion group grew. Mia and Ethan became unofficial leaders. their confidence inspiring others. One day, a new student joined Jaden, a 17-year-old with a quiet intensity. "I'm trans," Jaden said during their first meeting, their voice steady but eyes wary. "My parents, they don't get it." James listened, his heart aching. He saw Lily's fire in Jaden's defiance, Emma's vulnerability in their hesitation. "You're welcome here," he said. "We're all figuring it out together." After the meeting, Jaden lingered. "Mr. Hartley, how do you deal with family who don't understand?" James hesitated, then spoke from the heart. "You keep showing up. You be honest, even when it's hard. Sometimes, it takes time for love to catch up." Jaden nodded, a flicker of hope in their eyes. James felt it too, a reminder that his own journey with his daughters was far from over. At home, James and Mark settled into a rhythm. Mark had started leaving a toothbrush at James's place, a small but significant step. They cooked together, laughed over bad TV, and talked about the future. "Do you think your girls will ever be okay with us?" Mark asked one night, his voice soft. James traced the rim of his wine glass. "Thoughtful. Emma's getting there. Lily, she's tougher. But I believe in her." Mark smiled, his hand finding James's. "You're a good dad, James. They'll see that." The words warmed James, but doubt lingered. He wanted to believe Lily would come around, but her silence on Mark felt like a wound that wouldn't heal. One Saturday, Emma invited James to her college's spring festival. The campus was alive with music and laughter. Students sprawled on the grass with food trucks lining the paths. Emma waved him over, her smile bright. "Glad you came, Dad." They wandered the stalls, sharing tacos and watching a student band. Emma pointed out her friends, her life unfolding in front of James like a gift. As they sat on a bench, she turned to him, her expression serious. "I talked to Lily," she said. "She's struggling, but she misses you. She's just scared of losing what we had." James nodded, his throat tight. "I never wanted to take that away from you." "I know," Emma said. "I think she does too. She just needs to see you're still you." James hugged her, grateful for her insight, her heart. "You're too wise for 19, he said, earning a laugh. The next week, James got a call from Claire. Her voice was steady but urgent. "Lily wants to talk. Can you come over tonight?" James's heart raced as he drove to Claire's apartment. Lily answered the door, her expression unreadable. "Hey, Dad," she said, stepping aside. They sat in the living room, the same space where he'd come out months ago. The air felt different now, less heavy, but still charged. Lily clasped her hands, her eyes fixed on the floor. "I've been thinking a lot," she began. "About you, about Mom, about everything. I was so mad, Dad. I felt like you betrayed us." James nodded, letting her speak. "I get it, Lil. I hate that I hurt you." She looked up, her eyes glistening. "But I've been talking to Mom. She's not okay, but she's trying. And I saw Mia's essay. And I don't want to lose you. I just don't know how to fit this new you into my life." James leaned forward, his voice soft. "I'm still the dad who helped you with your history projects, who cheered at your soccer games. That hasn't changed. I just want you to know all of me." Lily wiped her eyes. "I want that too. But I'm not ready for Mark. Not yet." "That's okay," James said, relief flooding him. "We'll go at your pace." She nodded, a small smile breaking through. "Can we grab coffee tomorrow? Just us?" James's heart soared. "I'd love that." The coffee date with Lily was tentative but real. They talked about her grad school plans, her dog, the little things that had always connected them. She didn't mention Mark, and James didn't push. It was enough to see her smile, to feel the gap between them narrowing. Back at school, James poured his energy into the discussion group. Jaden opened up more, sharing their art-vibrant sketches that spoke of identity and resilience. Ethan started bringing his cousin to meetings, a quiet kid who listened more than he spoke. The group became a haven, a place where James could be the teacher he'd always wanted to be. Honest, human. One evening, Mark joined him for dinner after a meeting. As they walked to the car, James stopped, struck by a sudden thought. "I want to do more," he said, "not just for the kids, but for families, to help them understand." Mark's eyes lit up. "Like a community group. You'd be amazing at that." James nodded, the idea taking root. "Yeah, maybe it's time to stop hiding." As summer approached, James felt a shift. Emma started inviting Mark to small outings, a picnic, a movie. Her ease with him was a gift, a sign that love could stretch to fit new truths. Lily wasn't there yet, but she was trying, meeting James weekly, their bond slowly rebuilding. One afternoon, Claire called. "I'm proud of you, James," she said, her voice warm. "You're doing right by the girls. And I'm glad you're happy." The words caught James off guard, a balm to wounds he hadn't realized still ached. "Thank you, Claire, for everything." As he hung up, James looked out at the Portland skyline, the city glowing in the summer light. He wasn't whole yet, but he was getting there one honest moment at a time. Summer in Portland was a burst of warmth, the city alive with festivals and farmers markets, the Willamette River sparkling under clear skies. James felt the season's energy in his steps, a lightness he hadn't known in years. His daughters were finding their way back to him, and he was finding his way to himself, a man no longer hiding, but still learning what that meant. Emma had become his bridge to the future. She invited Mark to a barbecue at her college house, a casual gathering of friends and music. James watched as Mark charmed her roommates with stories of quirky library patrons, his laughter blending with Emma's. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental, a piece of his new life fitting into the old. Lily, though, remained a work in progress. Their weekly coffee dates were steady, filled with talk of her thesis and her dreams of working in environmental policy. But Mark was a topic she sidestepped, her smile fading whenever James mentioned him. "I'm trying, Dad," she said once, her voice tight. "It's just hard." James nodded, swallowing his impatience. "I know, Lil. I'm here." At school, the discussion group thrived. James had started inviting parents, creating a space for families to talk openly about identity. The first meeting was small, just Jaden's mom, Ethan's parents, and a few others, but it was electric. Jaden's mom, tearful but earnest, asked questions that echoed Claire's early struggles. James shared bits of his own story, careful not to overshare, but enough to show he understood. Afterward, Jaden hugged him, their eyes bright. "Thanks, Mr. Hartley. My mom, she's starting to get it." James smiled, his heart full. "You're helping her too, Jaden. Keep talking." The group grew, and James saw echoes of his own family in the parents and kids who showed up. He invited Mark to speak at one meeting, sharing his experience as a librarian who'd built a queer-friendly book collection. The kids loved him, and even the parents listened, their skepticism softening. One evening, James and Mark sat on James's porch, the summer air warm and buzzing with crickets. "You're changing lives, you know," Mark said, his hand resting on James's knee. James shook his head. I'm just trying to keep up with the kids. They're the ones teaching me. Mark laughed, his eyes warm. You're too humble. You're giving them a space to be themselves. That's huge. James leaned into him, grateful for his steadiness. I want my girls to have that too. To know they can be themselves with me. No matter what. They will, Mark said. You're showing them how. The next week, Emma called with an idea. There's a pride event downtown, she said, her voice bright. I was thinking, maybe we could go. You, me, and Mark. James's heart leapt. You sure? Em? Yeah, she said. I want to understand your world better. James agreed, nervous but thrilled. He invited Lily, expecting her usual hesitation. But to his surprise, she texted back, I'll think about it. The Pride event was a riot of color rainbow flags. Music, laughter filling the streets. James and Mark walked with Emma, her energy infectious as she pointed out booths and danced to a street band. James felt a swell of pride not just in the event, but in his daughter, who was choosing to stand beside him. Halfway through the day, James's phone buzzed. A text from Lily. I'm here. Where are you? His breath caught. He scanned the crowd, spotting her near a food truck, her expression nervous but determined. Lil, he called, waving her over. She approached, her eyes flicking to Mark, then back to James. Hey, she said, her voice soft. I wanted to see this. James hugged her, his heart pounding. I'm so glad you're here. Mark smiled, offering a small wave. Good to see you. Lily. She nodded, her smile tight but not unkind. You too. They walked together, the four of them, the crowd a vibrant backdrop to their tentative steps. Lily didn't say much, but she stayed, and that was enough. Emma linked arms with her, whispering something that made Lily laugh, and James felt a tear slip down his cheek. Back at home, James reflected on the day. Lily's presence at Pride was a milestone, a sign she was trying to understand. He called Claire that night, needing to share the moment. She showed up, he said, his voice thick. I didn't think she would. Claire's laugh was warm. She's stubborn, but she loves you. You're doing good, James. The words meant more than he could say. Claire had been his partner for 25 years, and though their marriage had ended, her support was a gift he hadn't expected. As summer faded, James started planning a community event, a family day for the discussion group, open to the school and beyond. He wanted it to be a celebration of acceptance, a way to bring people together. Mark helped with the logistics, his organizational skills a perfect complement to James's vision. Emma volunteered to design flyers, her enthusiasm infectious. This is cool, Dad, she said, showing him a draft with bright colors and bold text. You're making a difference. James hugged her, grateful for her belief in him. Couldn't do it without you. Em. Lily agreed to help too, offering to coordinate food vendors. I'm not great with the touchy-feely stuff, she said, her tone dry. But I can make sure people don't starve. James laughed, his heart lighter than it had been in months. That's perfect, Lil. The family day arrived. A sunny Saturday in September. The school gym was transformed, tables lined with food, music playing, kids and parents mingling. Jaden's art was displayed on the walls, vibrant and proud. Ethan's cousin read a poem he'd written, his voice steady despite his nerves. Lily worked the food tables, her smile genuine as she chatted with parents. Emma bounced between groups, her energy lighting up the room. Mark stayed by James's side, his presence a quiet anchor. As the event wound down, Lily pulled James aside. "This is good, Dad," she said. "I'm proud of you." James's eyes burned. "Thanks, Lil. That means everything." She hesitated, then added, "I'm not ready to call Mark family or anything, but I'm okay with him being in your life." It was a small concession, but it felt like a victory. James hugged her, his heart full. "I love you, Lil." "I love you too," she said, her voice soft. As the sun set, James stood with Mark, Emma, and Lily, watching the last of the crowd leave. The gym was a mess, but it was a beautiful mess, a testament to connection, to love, to trying. James knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, he believed they'd walk it together. Fall settled over Portland like a warm blanket, the city's trees ablaze with reds and golds. James felt the season's rhythm in his Lithia's slow, steady rebuilding of what had been broken. The family day had been a success, its echoes lingering in the school's halls and in his heart. His daughters were closer than they'd been in months, and though the wounds of his coming out still ached, they were healing, one conversation at a time. Emma had become his cheerleader, her acceptance of Mark a beacon of hope. She'd started inviting him to casual hangouts, game nights with her friends, coffee runs. Mark fit easily into her world, his quiet humor a perfect match for her energy. "He's growing on me," she admitted one evening, grinning over pizza. "You picked a good one, Dad." James laughed, his chest warm. "Glad you think so, Em." Lily was slower to warm, but she was trying. Their coffee dates had become a ritual, a safe space to talk about everything but Mark. She shared her grad school acceptancia program in Seattle, and James beamed with pride. "You're going to change the world, Lil," he said. She rolled her eyes, but her smile was real. "Maybe. We'll see." At school, the discussion group had become a cornerstone of James's life. It wasn't just a club, Anna Maria, it was a community. Parents attended regularly now, their questions evolving from confusion to curiosity. Jaden's mom shared a breakthrough. She'd started using Jaden's pronouns consistently, a small but seismic shift. Ethan's parents invited their estranged brother to dinner, a step toward reconciliation. James felt a responsibility to keep the group going, to make it a safe haven for anyone who needed it. He started working with the school counselor to integrate resources for queer students, from books to guest speakers. Mark helped, curating a list of novels that reflected diverse identities. "You're building a legacy," Mark said one night, his eyes proud. James shook his head, humble as ever. "I'm just trying to do right by these kids." One crisp October evening, James got a text from Lily. "Can we talk? Somewhere quiet." His heart raced as he drove to the park where he'd met Emma months ago. Lily was waiting by the duck pond, her expression serious but not angry. "Hey, Dad," she said as he approached. "Thanks for coming." "Always," James said, sitting beside her. The air was cool, the pond reflecting the last of the sunset. Lily took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about Mom, about how hard this has been for her. I was so mad at you for hurting her. But I see her trying to move on. She's dating again. You know." James nodded, surprised but relieved. "She told me. I'm happy for her." Lily's eyes met his, searching. "I want to be happy for you too. I'm not there yet, but I'm closer. I need to know you're still my dad, no matter what." James's throat tightened. "I'll always be your dad, Lil. Nothing changes that." She nodded, her eyes glistening. "I want to meet Mark. Properly. Maybe dinner or something." James's heart soared. But he kept his voice steady. I'd love that. We'll go slow. Okay. Okay, she said, a small smile breaking through. The dinner happened a week later, at a quiet Italian restaurant downtown. Lily was nervous, her hands fidgeting with her napkin. But Mark was his usual self-warm, easygoing, quick to make her laugh with a story about a library patron who returned a book covered in spaghetti sauce. Emma was there too, her presence a buffer, her laughter filling the gaps. Lily didn't say much about Mark afterward, but she texted James later, he's not bad. Thanks for dinner. It was small, but it was progress, and James held on to it like a lifeline. Thanksgiving approached again, a year since the family's fragile truce. Claire invited James and Mark to join them, a gesture that stunned him. The girls want it, she said over the phone, and I think it's time. The day was warm, filled with the familiar smells of turkey and pie. Emma hugged Mark when they arrived, her ease a stark contrast to Lily's cautious nod. But Lily stayed, helping Claire in the kitchen, even laughing at Mark's terrible puns. As they sat around the table, James felt a lump in his throat. This was his family, not the one he'd imagined decades ago, but the one he had now. Messy and beautiful. Claire raised her glass, her smile genuine. To new beginnings, she said. To new beginnings. James echoed, his eyes meeting Lily's, then Emma's, then Mark's. For the first time, he felt whole. Back at school, the discussion group planned a winter showcasing evening of art, poetry, and stories from the students. Jaden's sketches were the centerpiece, vibrant and raw. Ethan read a new poem, his stutter barely noticeable. Even Lily showed up, her presence a quiet gift. After the showcase, she pulled James aside. I'm moving to Seattle soon, she said, but I want to keep this going. Okay. James hugged her, his heart full. Always. Lil. As he watched her join Emma and Mark, chatting with Jaden's mom, James felt a wave of gratitude. He'd spent years hiding, afraid of losing everything. But here, in this moment, he saw what he'd gained, a family that was learning to love him as he was. Winter deepened, and James and Mark planned a quiet holiday together. They decorated a small tree in James's living room, laughing as they untangled Christmas lights. Next year, Mark said, maybe the girls will help with this. James smiled, imagining it. Maybe. As they sat by the tree, Mark took his hand. You've come a long way, James. I'm proud of you. James squeezed his hand, his heart steady. Couldn't have done it without you. The road hadn't been easy, but it had led him here to a life where he could love openly, where his daughters were finding their way back to him, where he could be the father, the teacher, the man he'd always wanted to be. Winter wrapped Portland in a quiet chill, the city's lights twinkling against the early dark. James felt the season's introspective pull, a time to reflect on the year that had reshaped his life. His daughters were no longer strangers, their tentative steps toward acceptance a gift he hadn't dared hope for. Mark was his constant, a partner in a life James was still learning to claim. The discussion group's winter showcase had left a mark on the school. Parents who'd once been skeptical now thanked James, their gratitude raw and real. Jaden's mom sent him a card, her handwriting shaky but sincere. Thank you for helping us see our child. Ethan's uncle attended the next meeting, his presence a quiet victory. James felt a shift in himself too. He wasn't just surviving anymore, was building. He started planning a spring conference for educators, a way to share resources for supporting queer students. Mark was all in, offering to lead a workshop on inclusive literature. You're unstoppable, he teased, kissing James's forehead. James laughed, but the truth was, he felt unstoppably, least some days. Others, he still wrestled with doubt, wondering if he'd done right by his daughters. By Claire. Emma visited often, her college life a whirlwind of exams and internships. She'd taken to calling Mark the book guy, a nickname that made him grin. One evening, she showed up with a Surprizia rainbow keychain for James. "For your school bag," she said, her eyes bright. "So you know I'm with you." James hugged her, his throat tight. "You're too good to me, Em." "Nah," she said, grinning. "You're just easy to love." Lily's move to Seattle loomed, a bittersweet milestone. She'd been accepted into a prestigious environmental policy program, and James couldn't have been prouder. They met for one last coffee before she left, the cafe warm against the winter chill. "I'm gonna miss you, Dad," she said, stirring her latte. "But I'm glad we're us again." James's heart swelled. "Me too, Lil. You'll visit, right?" "Duh," she said, her smile playful. "And maybe bring Mark next time I'm in town." The offer caught James off guard. A spark of hope. "I'd like that," he said softly. Lily's departure was emotional, but not devastating. She hugged James tightly at the airport, her eyes wet. "Love you, Dad," she whispered. "Love you too," he said, watching her disappear into the terminal. As he drove home, he felt a strange peace. Lily was building her own life, but she was still his daughter, their bond stronger for the storms they'd weathered. Spring arrived early, Portland's cherry blossoms blooming in a riot of pink. The conference took shape, with teachers from across the state signing up. James was nervous but excited, his vision of a more inclusive world taking root. Mark helped with the planning, his calm balancing James's intensity. The day of the conference, the school was alive with energy. Educators filled the auditorium, their notebooks open, their questions eager. James spoke first, sharing his story not just as a teacher, but as a father, a man who'd hidden for too long. The room was quiet, attentive, and when he finished, the applause was warm, genuine. Mark's workshop was a hit, his passion for books infectious. Emma showed up to help, her pride in James evident as she handed out programs. Even Claire sent a text, "Heard about the conference. You're doing good things, James." As the day ended, James felt a weight lift. He'd spent years teaching history, but this creating a space for understanding was his legacy. That evening, James and Mark celebrated with dinner at their favorite restaurant. The candlelight flickered, casting soft shadows on Mark's face. "You were amazing today," Mark said, raising his glass. James smiled, clinking his glass against Mark's. "We were amazing." They talked about the future trips they wanted to take, books they wanted to read, a life they were building together. James thought of his daughters, of the family day, of the countless small moments that had brought them here. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Summer returned, and with it, Lily's first visit home. She arrived with stories of Seattle, her eyes bright with purpose. James invited her and Emma to dinner with Mark, nervous but hopeful. To his relief, it was easy laughter, shared stories, Lily's guarded warmth softening as Mark told a terrible joke. After dinner, Lily lingered. "I'm getting there, Dad," she said. "With Mark. With all of this." James hugged her, his heart full. "That's all I need, Lil." As she left, Emma grinned at James. "Told you she'd come around." James laughed, ruffling her hair. "You're always right, Em." The year ended with a quiet moment, James and Mark on the porch, watching the sunset. The city hummed around them, alive with possibility. James thought of the boy he'd been, hiding in a small town, afraid of his own heart. He thought of the man he was now, surrounded by love, by family, by a community he'd helped build. "We did okay, didn't we?" he said, his hand in Mark's. Mark smiled, his eyes warm. "Better than okay." James leaned into him, the weight of the past year falling away. He was home not just in Portland, but in himself, in the life he'd fought for, in the love he'd found. The second summer since James's coming out was softer, warmer, the edges of his life smoothed by time and effort. Portland buzzed with its usual energy street fairs, open markets, the river reflecting the endless blue sky. James felt at peace, a man no longer at war with himself. His daughters were part of his world again, their love a thread that had held through the strain. Emma had graduated college, her cap and gown a blur of joy in James's memory. She'd taken a job at a local nonprofit, her passion for social justice a mirror of Lily's fire. She and Mark had become friends, their banter a fixture at family dinners. "You're stuck with me now," Mark teased her once, and Emma's laugh was a gift. Lily was thriving in Seattle, her letters and calls filled with stories of her program and new friends. She visited often, her connection to James growing stronger with each trip. She'd met Mark several times now, her initial wariness giving way to cautious warmth. "He's not so bad," she admitted one day, her smile shy but real. At school, James's work had become a beacon. The discussion group was a staple, its impact rippling through the community. Parents who'd once hesitated now advocated for their kids, their pride a testament to the group's power. Jaden had graduated, their art accepted into a local gallery. Ethan was applying to colleges, his confidence a quiet triumph. James's spring conference had sparked interest beyond Portland, with invitations to speak at other schools. He and Mark were planning a second event, bigger this time, with workshops for students, parents, and teachers. "You're changing the game," Mark said, his pride evident. James shrugged, humble as ever, just trying to make it easier for the next kid. One August evening, Claire invited James, Mark, and the girls to her house for a barbecue. It was a milestone, the first time their reconfigured family would gather so fully. James was nervous, his hands fidgeting as they arrived. Claire greeted them with a smile. Her new partner, Tom, by her side. He was kind, unassuming, and James felt a quiet gratitude for the life Claire was building. Emma and Lily were already there, setting out plates and laughing over a shared memory. The backyard was alive with music and the smell of grilled corn, the sunset painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Mark fit in easily, chatting with Tom about baseball, while Emma roped Lily into a silly dance. James watched, his heart full. This was his family, not the one he'd planned, but the one he'd found. Claire caught his eye, her smile soft. "We did okay, didn't we?" she said. James nodded, his throat tight. "Better than okay." As the evening wound down, Lily pulled James aside. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice steady. "I was so angry when you came out. I thought you'd broken everything. But you didn't. You made it better, in a way." James's eyes burned. "I'm still sorry for the pain, Lil." "I know," she said, "but I'm proud of you. For being honest. For doing all this." She gestured to the yard, to the family they'd rebuilt. James hugged her, his heart overflowing. "I love you, Lil." "Love you too, Dad," she said, her voice muffled against his shoulder. Emma joined them, throwing her arms around both. "Group hug," she declared, laughing. Mark watched from a distance, his smile warm. James caught his eye, a silent thank you passing between them. This was the life he'd fought for, a life of love, of truth, of family. Fall arrived, and with it, the second conference. It was a triumph, hundreds of attendees. Stories shared, connections forged. James spoke again, his voice steady as he told his story. Not just as a teacher, but as a father, a partner, a man who'd found his way. The applause was thunderous, but it was the quiet moments afterward, the parents who thanked him, the kids who hugged him, that stayed with him. As the school year began, James felt a sense of completion. He'd spent decades hiding, afraid of who he was. Now, he stood in the open, his daughters by his side, his partner his anchor. The discussion group continued, a legacy he'd leave for the next generation. On a quiet October evening, James and Mark walked along the Willamette River, the city lights reflecting on the water. They stopped at a bench, the air cool and crisp. 2 years ago, I didn't think I'd get here, James said, his hand in Mark's. I thought I'd lose everything. Mark squeezed his hand. You gained everything instead. James smiled, thinking of Emma's laughter, Lily's strength, Claire's grace. He thought of the kids at school, the families they'd helped, the life he was living unapologetically. Yeah, he said, his voice soft. I did. As they walked home, the city alive around them, James felt a profound gratitude. His daughter's reaction had changed everything, not just for him, but for the family they'd become. It was a journey of pain, of growth, of love, and it was theirs.